Are you a Warhammer 40k player that enjoys epic space battles and aliens and world-ending drama mixed with a little bit of humor? Then I have the perfect recommendation for you, and that's going to be the topic of today's episode. That is Expeditionary Force by Craig Alanson. This is book one. It's called Columbus Day. See if I can tilt it there. There we go, so you can see everything. It is one of my favorite series of all time, and I want to share it with you guys. Give you guys an opportunity to experience something that's a fun mix-in read when you're getting a little overwhelmed with a little too much Warhammer. I'm currently about 35 books into the Horus Heresy, and I reached that point quite a bit. And Expeditionary Force is a nice, light read that doesn't pull you too far out. Because I know it can be a little weird when you are deep in a series like the Horus Heresy, or you're working on tackling the Indominus Crusade, and then you need a break, so you switch to historical fiction or some lighthearted fantasy. And for some people that works. For some people it can be a little jarring, and it is for me. So I've been trying to mix things up with some sci-fi, and I've actually found some good recommendations. So we're going to talk about those, or we're going to talk about Expeditionary Force this time, and then every other week we're going to talk about the book recommendations I have that might be a good change-up book, and we're actually going to talk about how to implement them into your gameplay so you get a cool narrative twist. Now, Expeditionary Force is a military sci-fi series that is absolutely fantastic. It is based on two main characters, really one and a partial. The main character you have is Joe Bishop. He's, at the start of a series, he's just a specialist in the army who happens to be in the wrong place at the right time. And that kind of is his entire story. He's in the right place to be forced to do something that is very complicated to save people, and it ends up putting him in very unique and kind of compromising positions. And it's a lot of fun to read. The second character, I have Skippy here. Yes, that's a paint can. He's often referred to as a beer can as well. But Skippy is an alien AI who befriends Joe Bishop and works with humans to save them from the aliens who honestly are far, far more advanced than they are. And because the galaxy has been at war for hundreds of thousands of years, humans are really out of their league, and they have to try and find their way to survive. And the only way they can do that is potentially with Skippy. So with all that said, why should that interest somebody who likes Warhammer 40k? Well, like Warhammer 40k, this does flirt quite a bit with that edge of grimdark. It's a little bit more to the hope side than Warhammer 40k. So I kind of call it a lighter palate cleanser to Warhammer 40k. But it gives you that no one's really the good guy. You root for the humans and a few of their allies, but they cross the line too. They do a lot of things that are kind of sketchy. Honestly, that's the entire point of the story. It's about the Merry Band of Pirates, which is the quasi-military unit that Joe Bishop accidentally kind of creates to do a bunch of sketchy stuff in order to save humanity. And honestly, minus the religious zealotry of Warhammer 40k, they actually fit in pretty well. Yeah, it's a little bit lighter hearted, a little bit funnier. It's got a little bit more of that slightly dark military humor, as well as the immature jokes and stuff like that you'd see, honestly, talking to anybody who's currently in the military or has been in the military, which I found a lot of fun. But it is something that a Warhammer 40k reader should be comfortable with. Like I said, it's a little bit lighter, so if you treat it like a palate cleanser between it, there are currently 17 books in that series. So if you need palate cleansers throughout the Horus Heresy, that's a good place to start. They're usually pretty quick reads. They're fairly long. They're not short books, but they do a good job of kind of giving you a little bit of a break from the weight of things like the Horus Heresy or the War of the Beast or any of those series that can be overwhelming. There are 40k books that do that. I found Lion Son of the Forest and Assassin Arm Kingmaker were good palate cleansers as well, but there's only so many of those that are really good quality that you can enjoy. Now that we've talked a little bit about what Expeditionary Force is and why I think 40k players and readers would enjoy reading it, let's talk about some of the similarities and some of the touchstones that we see. Yes, they are 38,000 years apart, but things like epic scale, galaxy-wide conflict is very common in Expeditionary Force, just as it is in Warhammer 40k. The amount of warfare and potential loss of life and the intense missions that happen are very Warhammer 40k-esque. Craig Alanson doesn't hold back from the dread and the danger. He does a really good job of giving military science fiction lovers exactly what they're looking for. It's a lot of fun to see. There's a little bit more space battle in here than there are terrestrial battles, but there are both. So you get to see both reflected quite well. On top of that, you have diverse alien species. There are a lot of different alien races, some that actually hold somewhat of a parallel to Warhammer 40k. One of the closest ones is one of the big bads in the series. They're called the Maxolks. They're giant kind of cat humanoids, but honestly, if you take off the furriness, they're just Drukhari. And they're vindictive, they're controlling, they're terrible, terrible people. And they do unspeakable horrors that are very, very close to Drukhari. And next week, if you join us, I'm actually going to do just a battle breakdown and just talk a little bit about the units that were involved and why and things like that. So make sure you join us next week for that. And to make sure you don't miss out on that, make sure you're subscribed and ring that little bell so you get notified when the next video comes out next week. On top of all of that, it does have a major military focus. So just like in a lot of Warhammer 40k, the military is the focus of pretty much the entire story. There are some character arcs and some character-focused things as well, but the military action is what really kind of drives the narrative, and it's the same in Expeditionary Force. And finally, it's something that the Mechanicus would hate, and that is AI. That's right, AI plays a major role in this story, both loving it and hating it. There's a lot of alien races and humans that completely dislike it. The one AI that you see regularly, Skippy, not really a great person. He's very rude. There's a lot of terms used to describe him that I don't want to use on YouTube. You can probably guess what they are. If you can't, read Columbus Day, you'll know what I'm talking about. But he is very, very arrogant, very, very full of himself, and does not really focus on anyone else unless pushed. Joe Bishop is one of the few people who can push him to actually do it, which is really, really fascinating. And you get to see kind of the foundations of some of the things that might have potentially happened in Warhammer to stop their interest in AI. It's a big concern that a lot of people even have today. And this approach of showing AI and what it's like can be really fascinating as well. So next, we're going to talk about some of the characters and why, and their Warhammer equivalents, and why I think you guys would like them as well. Okay, now that you guys know a little bit more about Expeditionary Force, next we're going to talk about some of the characters and what their rough 40k equivalents are going to be. So keep this in mind. This will actually come into play next week. You'll be seeing some of these show up, and it'll be a lot of fun to kind of get a one-to-one reflection on some of these characters. So first we got to talk about the main character, and that is Joe Bishop. Joe Bishop is literally an average Joe. in the beginning of the story, he kind of stumbles into his leadership role, but quickly finds out that he is actually quite good at it. He wasn't really trained to do it and has to kind of just guess his way into doing it and deal with some confidence issues, while actually turning out to be a fantastic tactician, as well as what a lot of people in the military call a spook. He's really good at sneaking around and disrupting things almost in a special forces-esque way, while also doing a lot of intelligence gathering like your more spies and intelligence agencies do. So the closest one that I could come up with, um, a lot of his traits kind of remind me of a hybrid between Eisenhorn and Caiaphas Cain, but his kind of story arc reminds me a lot of Gaunt's Ghosts, both Ibram Gaunt as well as several of his officers. Joe is just kind of an average soldier who climbs the ranks and becomes extremely dangerous, just like you have Tona Creed, you have Dragon Bragg, you have a lot of other major Gaunt's Ghost characters that all kind of start out that way. Playing Larkin's that way, just an average soldier who proves their skill and quickly grows into something a lot more. So he has a lot of equivalents. For ease of rule set in the next game, I actually use Eisenhorn to make it easy. A lot of Eisenhorn's abilities in game would be things I'd kind of expect from Joe Bishop. The next character is Skippy. I've already showed the paint can that represents Skippy, the giant silver cylinder that has a lot of hacking and almost warp-esque abilities. His is science-based, so he does a lot with subspace and things like that. But in 40k, it would be Psyker-esque. So I can imagine a lot of people in the Imperium having a complete panic attack when not only is it an AI, but it's an AI Psyker. So for the tabletop, I had to go with a Navigator. It's the only real playable one that kind of works. You could also kind of use a primary Psyker if you wanted to. But, and if you haven't guessed, I'm using Agents of the Imperium as the backbone for this. So it gives us a lot of cool things we can do with his abilities. And next you have the Merry Band of Pirates. The Merry Band of Pirates are a very mixed group of kind of a hodgepodge of a bunch of things that Joe is able to just pull together throughout their missions, groups of humans, including some special forces units. You have people from the French Foreign Legion and the SAS, and the French Paratrooper Corps, and I believe the 82nd Airborne make up the initial strike force. Then you also have a lot of just standard Marines, which would be Navy breachers in Warhammer 40k, or just standard personnel on the ship. And it's a lot of fun to be able to mix and match and represent that with Agents of the Imperium. On top of that, you have, like I said, you have those special forces, and they have unique mech suits that are built and designed by Skippy and built off of the baseline of a lot of other things that gives them abilities very akin to Space Marines. So in order to represent the star teams, which are the special forces units, I went with some Death Watch squads, just one or two mixed in there, just to give it a little bit more of a punch, and make it so they're able to be recognized a little bit as well. And finally, let's talk alien factions. Like I've already talked about, the Maxolks are almost a straight one-to-one with Drukhari, just add fur. There are others that don't really get represented very well, some that do. You have a group called the Kristang, who are original antagonists in the first book. They are very almost orc-esque. They're very destructive, very non-caring about anyone and everyone, looking to enslave if it's convenient, but more likely just kill and murder. You have some other races, including the Rindalu, who are the head of the other faction that are fighting the Maxolks. They are almost Eldar-esque. They're spiders, so they look nothing like Eldar, but the way they move and do things is kind of Eldar, kind of Necron. So honestly, I'd probably actually go Necron. But you have a lot of cool one-to-one representations that you can pick on and tweak to fit that narrative. So if you wanted to bring the Riddle into the fight, I'd probably use the Necrons. Because using things like the Silent Kings and the Canoptic Courts would be a lot of fun that way. You can do a lot of really cool things that would actually represent a lot of what the Riddle do. But with all of that, I'll save more of those details for next week. Once again, ring the bell, subscribe, give me a like, so that you can see what it's going to be like when we actually put this into a 40k narrative. And I'm super excited about it. It's been a lot of work to do. Okay, and finally, let's talk a little bit further now that you understand what the story is, what some of the characters are like. What are some of the key points as to why 40k readers and players would enjoy this book? Honestly, the big one is the darkness mixed with the humor. Take the grimdark of the 41st millennium, slap in some humor, something that Mike Brooks would be proud of with a lot of his jokes, and amp it up a little bit. You have Expeditionary Force. There's a lot of really cool strategic thinking and tactical planning mixed with dumb jokes. There's one time that they're trying to escape a massive space battle, and this will not really be a spoiler. I'm avoiding the actual spoilers, but when you get there, you'll actually recognize it. But they're in a giant space battle. It's one ship versus dozens of ships, all shooting, and they figure out a way to stealth some missiles that actually blow a hole in the fight, and it is high tension. It's intense, just like a lot of the major battle scenes you see in a lot of the Horus Heresy. At that point where you're not sure the characters are getting out of there, almost Istvan 3-esque when you're reading about Garvey Loken. And through all of that pressure, it's broken when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Skippy highlights one of the ships exploding and goes, "Ooh, it looks like a bunny." You have a lot of those just small, dark humor jokes mixed in with some other just plain funny jokes. And you achieve that really interesting balance of humor and grimdark that is something that I've thoroughly enjoyed with his stories. Honestly, I wish I could write with that style like Craig Alanson does. I tend to lean a little bit more Dan Abnett. I don't ease as much tension with humor. I do it through more character building stuff. But it's one of those stories that has inspired me to go out of my way and try some new things in my writing as well. So finally, we talk about the escalating stakes in Warhammer a lot, how things just seem to be getting progressively worse. It doesn't matter how many times somebody fixes something, there's always a bigger problem down the road. And in Expeditionary Force, that is exactly how this universe works. As soon as the humans are free from one problem, there's another problem or two that are even more dangerous than the problem they just solved. And a lot of times, the problem they just solved actually caused at least one or two of the things that are now in their way. So there's a lot of things that I think Warhammer 40k readers and players would enjoy with Expeditionary Force. Okay, so with everything we've talked about, I think I've given you guys enough reasons to check out Expeditionary Force. There's a lot of things that Warhammer 40k readers and players will thoroughly enjoy. So make sure you go check out Expeditionary Force. Columbus Day is book 1. I absolutely would recommend the audiobooks as well. R.C. Bray is the narrator, and he is absolutely fantastic with this. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff that he does that I actually didn't notice as much when I was reading the physical copy of the book that I did with the audiobooks, because he's very good at voices and dramatic tones and escalations that you don't really get with paper books, which is honestly one of the reasons I enjoy audiobooks as much as I do. But it's a good pickup in both Audible, Kindle, physical copies, so that you can enjoy it. To be clear, not sponsored. I have no skin in the game besides I just enjoy it. But I absolutely would recommend it. Now, If you guys have enjoyed talking about Expeditionary Force with me today, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the little bell so you get notified of any videos we have coming up. We have the Expeditionary Force inspired narrative gameplay run through that we're going to do next week, talking about armies that would be inspired by this, some of the narratives, some of the terrain we'd use, and how it's going to be possible to do a narrative inspired campaign from a book series that is not 40k in 40k. I'm super excited about it, and I can't wait to show it with you guys. So make sure you join us next week, and I'll see you guys next time.